But welcome everybody. This is our second mini session to help cover Education Day. Like I said in the past, we usually go and visit schools and things like that. With them being shut down, we had to get creative and find some other avenues for what for educational opportunities that are out there in our county, and just kind of educate those on yours. So we have two Carols here today with us. They are from the Financial Literacy Council. So they're going to kind of talk about what they do and what they offer and how they can help our communities, and kind of how they're working right now with everything going on with the COVID-19. So I will let them take it away.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Sounds good.
And let's see, I should go to the slideshow. There we go. So we are the Literacy Council of Sheboygan County. Oops, there we are. Almost 10,000 Sheboygan County adults. They cannot read, write, or do basic math above 3rd grade level. That's pretty serious. A lot of people think that the illiterate adults in our country, they can just go to school, go to the technical college. But the problem is they don't have the skills to even attend the technical college because their skills are so low level. So they fall between the cracks. So our vision is that we want to eradicate illiteracy for adults in our county. And this is what we do. We provide one-on-one. The main focus of our program is to provide one-on-one tutoring. Our service is offered for free. We train and support community volunteer tutors to do the tutoring for adults. We match a student and a tutor together who are compatible. They can meet at the same times. They might live in the same city. And then we track what happens with that pair. We track the books that they're working through, the goals that the student has, and we want to see outcomes.
Okay, so this slide pretty much describes my portion, my contribution to the Literacy Council. We recruit volunteer tutors, and we do provide them with training. The training is actually 7 hours long. And I think that's because a lot of our tutors are not professional educators. That's not their background. And they don't need to be. Tutoring can be done very effectively with anyone who really would like to just, offer that to the world. We do have also refresher sessions and workshops and cafes and so on, so that even after a tutor has gone through training, usually that's just the first step. Once they start tutoring a student, an adult student, they realize that there's a lot more that they need to learn. We provide support and resources and all the materials that students and teachers need. We have some very good research-based, well-regarded curriculum that we use. We also have a wide variety of other things so that when tutors and students get weary of one approach, they can switch or work with something else. What we do is we try and really work with the tutors about how they really need to target their students and make sure that their instruction is what that student particularly needs. So if we have a student who's an at-home mom, they might be targeting their instruction towards helping that mom have general conversations with school personnel or medical personnel. If we have a student who's in the workplace, then they might target the instruction more towards workplace communication and so on. One of the great things about our program is that the times and places that the tutors and the students meet is always flexible, and it's based on the tutor and student schedules and locations. A lot of our tutors work or did work at Meade, and I'm sure they will again. Mead has a really nice setup on the second floor. They have 5 individual little study rooms with one wall that's glass. So it's soundproof, but still very safe for tutors and students who don't know each other very well. The students are asked to pay for their books if they can afford it. If not, we ask them to make whatever contribution they can. And Carol has been really awesome about finding grants and some funding so that we can offer that on scholarship. Okay, Carol. These are some of the more recent innovations that we have that we're very proud of. We work a lot with LTC. We have a lot of students in our program that are also LTC students, and we help them with their homework. And we also we have 2 instructors at LTC that provide citizenship instruction. And this is kind of rolled right into their regular time at LTC. So students can sort of elect this as an elective. The students also help in their open computer labs, our tutors do, I should say. And more recently, within the last year and a half, we now have an instructor at a business who runs a classroom for employees who need to learn or would like to learn more English. And we are hoping to get another classroom at another industry set up. We were about ready to go when the pandemic hit, so that's all on hold for now, obviously. But we're optimistic that we'll be able to get that going again.
I'd like to jump in here. In the lower right corner is a picture of one of our former students who got her citizenship last year. And we're very proud. We had 8 students achieve U.S. citizenship last year, which is a phenomenal number. This year we had 1. And even just to get 1 is pretty good. So we're very proud. Should I go ahead, Carol?
Go ahead. So this is another thing that's very interesting, I think, about our program. We have students at all different levels and all different ranges. We have students that are just starting to learn English and may not even be literate in their own language. So along with learning a language, they're learning to read. So they might be learning the alphabet and so on. And then all the way up the continuum to some students that are polishing their very highly fluent English skills already and working on things like writing skills, sending professional emails, writing at the college level and so on. So it's really fun for us to find just the right tutor for each one of those kinds of students. And because I'm able to get to know the tutors pretty well during the 7 hours of training, it gives me a little insight into who would be a good match for whom. Okay, Carol.
This is where I have fun. I love data. So just to give you an idea, I'm the data queen. In 2019, we had a total of 133 students, plus the students that we served, and we don't really have their information at LTC, but there were a lot of students. So 95% need to learn English. 5% are the ones who are native English speakers and need help with other areas like reading and writing. And as you can see, the largest segment of ages that we serve are between 21 and 49, mostly female, and a lot of Hispanics, a lot of Latinos, and Asians, and so forth, just to give you a snapshot. What I want to impress is the poverty level of the students that we serve. I know you're probably all familiar with the poverty line. We have 30 students, 27% who are below the poverty line. That's a lot. I think in Sheboygan, it is on here, 8.2% of Sheboygan County residents are below the poverty line. So you can see that we ended up serving a lot of people who are very low income, and they're the ones who need the most help. And as it states on the bottom here, the more literate you are, the less likely you are to have received public assistance. So we kind of we're trying to lift people up in many ways, not only just learning English and have how to negotiate the healthcare system and learn how to go to parent-teacher conferences and talk to a teacher for their children, but help them with employment, help them, create a resume or fill out an application and look for a job or a better job. So there's a lot of good goals that our students have.
And if I could just jump in, one of the
Sure.
things that the tutors have been contacting us about more recently, we've been asking them, as you probably can surmise, our program isn't going forward at this point because of the Stay for at Home order, but we send out weekly emails to just connect with the tutors who then connect hopefully with their students. But a number of them have been telling us that they've been helping their students struggle through the unemployment applications and applications for SNAP benefits and so on. So we do have a lot of students who are struggling.
And as you can see, most of our students live in Sheboygan. Our office is out in Plymouth. The Literacy Council is one of two programs of the Family Resource Center. The other program is called Parents as Teachers. It's a home visitation program for families with babies up through age 5 or 6. And so the office was centrally located in our county, but really most of our students live in Sheboygan, and most of our tutors do their tutoring in Sheboygan. And it might not always be at Mead or other public libraries. A lot of coffee houses are used, some churches, wherever it's convenient for people to go. And last year in 2019, these are the countries that our students came from, besides the United States. And these are the languages that they spoke. We're very fortunate. We've discovered a language line, which helps when you're first contacting a student who speaks Thai or Arabic and whatever. And it's been a real blessing. And we also have some tutors who serve as, they help to evaluate our brand new students. They see where their literacy levels are at. They give them, short tests, and some of them speak Spanish, and that's been very helpful to us. And is this you, Carol?
Okay, so we have, as Carol and I have both referenced, our students have many challenges because so many of them are low income. They really struggle, and it's really important when we work with our tutors to make sure that they understand this. A lot of tutors have been, very fortunate in their own lives and haven't really had to have a lot of struggles with their finances or whatever. But a lot of our students do have these issues. People coming from other countries always, no matter what country, have some culture shock. More recently, we've had people coming from countries that have really different cultures than US cultures, non-European countries. If they're coming from the Middle East, the differences in how women are treated is radically different. Same for some Asian countries. So the culture shock can be overwhelming sometimes, particularly with brand new immigrants. They're also dealing with a lot of financial issues. Unfortunately, we anticipate that this is going to get markedly worse, and we are all worried about that. And then there's some simple things that tutors may not be aware of, and those are things like transportation and childcare. If you are low income, typically you may not have a real reliable car, and that can be an issue, or you may not have a car at all. And if you have to rely on the bus system in town here, and this is not a slam on the Sheboygan Transit, I think they do the best they can, but the buses don't run as often as we wish, so that can be an issue, especially in bad weather. And then there's childcare. A lot of people struggle. Many of our students have children of their own. Some of them are part of that sandwich generation where they're caring for aging parents, working a job, and also caring for their kids. So they're very, very busy people. Some of our students also have more than one job just to make it financially. So the fact that they can squeeze any kind of learning and tutoring for themselves into their lives is, I think, quite remarkable and should be commended. And then many of them also work in businesses that are not maybe real good. I'm trying to be diplomatic here. May not be real good about communicating work schedule changes, or may just walk in at the last minute and say, Gerald, you're going to be working an extra shift because your replacement didn't come in. We have students who are working on the dairy farms, and the farmers have to get those cows milked. So if they need someone to work a double shift, they just have to do it. So the reason that we really emphasize this with our tutors is that we want them to know that sometimes the students, through no fault of the tutor or the student, just has to change their schedule or not come to a particular tutoring session. Okay, Carol.
Oh, I forgot those two. Do you want to say anything
okay.
about those?
Yeah, and the last two deal with a very small proportion of our student body, as we say. But there are some students in our program that have a marked learning disability or even some brain injury, sadly enough. But this is a small percentage of our students, and what I usually try and do is find a tutor who has some interest and sometimes even some expertise in working with this kind of situation. We do have a number of tutors in our program who are retired educators, and this is sometimes where we tap their skills. Okay.
Okay, it's 8:18, and I'm going to hurry you along, Carol.
Okay. I talked about most of the immigrant experience already. You may have all heard of the phrase trauma-informed care. I'm not going to go into it because of time, but that might be something that you can just Google and look up. There is the Mental Health America people in town, particularly Katie Pruitt, does a wonderful job with a presentation on trauma-informed care. But those are all the things that people are dealing with if they've left another country, if they're in a wartime experience, and so on. Okay, Carol. And these are I just wanted to show you this because these are some of the things that we do automatically in our daily lives and take for granted, but these are many of the types of things that an adult with low literacy or low English speaking skills can really struggle with.
Okay, this is fun. I get to tell you about some successes. So the students usually have 3 types of goals. Most of them come in wanting to learning English. They want to learn how to speak it so that they can survive and participate in life around here. But many of them need have functional goals, learn how to do things. You know, people are introduced to the library, learn to get a library card, want to get their driver's license. So I would like to just share just a few very quick stories. We had one student, a young man, who, whoops, where's my notes? Sorry. Here we are. He did not read very well, and he grew up in this area. And his wonderful tutor, she'd been with us for years, very good tutor, helped him learn to read much better. His reading level was very low. And then he got his very first job at Walmart. He rode his bike about 8 miles back and forth to his job. The people there loved him. He was just like, I think he was 19 when he joined our program, Carol.
Yes.
And he was on SSI just learning to read. So there he got a job, and he was full-time at Walmart and doing a great job. Well, that was in March. In December, he actually got a first shift job at Sargento. So can you imagine? He has benefits now, steady work, and we're just really proud of him. Another student that we had was a Spanish speaker who actually went into the hospital for surgery. When he went to the hospital, his wife was very concerned and said, "You better take an interpreter with you." He was having his gallbladder removed. He said, "No, I've got this." He's been tutored. And he did have it. He said all the nurses spoke only English, but he was there 2.5 days and he was just fine. So that was kind of exciting too. And we've had students who've gone on to, we've had students who got citizenship. who are going on to Lakeshore Technical College for higher education. We've had a lot of students achieve English skills. And I guess I'll leave it at that. Oh, 6 people got jobs this past year, so that was wonderful. Okay. I could go on and on, but I won't.
So I think that what we try and ask for from the tutors is a commitment for at least 6 months. And at first, this might seem surprising because it's not the typical volunteer experience. But the reasoning behind that is that it takes a while for a learning pair, which is a tutor and a student pair up, to get to know each other and to feel that comfort level so that tutoring can really become very effective. You don't need more than a high school diploma to become a volunteer tutor. You don't need teaching experience. I always joke with the tutor trainers that sometimes we retired teachers have our own set ways of doing things, and that's not always the best way either. So you need an open mind. You just need to be willing to learn a new skill and to help another person. And many of our tutors become very, very, very attached to their students. And during the pandemic, I've heard a lot of people, reaching out to their students and really mentoring through helping to mentor them through some of the paperwork that they have to do, applying for benefits and so on. So it becomes more than just a teaching experience for a lot of tutors and students. They develop a lifelong friendship in some cases and turn out to be wonderful mentors. My husband is a tutor in the program. He's done this for 10 years since he's been retired. And he's very, very attached to his student and has kept in touch with him. And so far his student is working, which is good. But about 1.5 years ago, he was very proud because his student and his family purchased a home. And Nick was able to mentor them through the very complicated process of dealing with a realtor and then applying for a loan.
I also wanted to point out that Carol Dussault and Carol Myers, came on board in 2014 as a job share. We're handling the Literacy Council, and we had 43 tutors back then, and now we have 95. And wonderful things have been happening, and we're just very grateful for the growth of this program. And we're looking ahead to see how to keep this program vibrant and continue to do good in the community. So if you want to be a tutor.
Okay, so normally, under normal circumstances, and this is far from that, I know, we are always trying to recruit volunteer tutors, and I'm sure we will have that need in the future. Right now, with everything being on hold, we are not recruiting tutors. We actually have a few tutors and students on our waiting list that we have to wait to place with each other until after it's safe to go back out into one-to-one tutoring. One-to-one tutoring, by definition, and you can see that in the pictures on the left and the right, cannot be done effectively with a lot of social distancing. We're talking about that now, and I think there are some ways that we can adapt it for the future so that people can still work one-on-one, but maybe at a little bit farther apart distance. Some of our tutors are using Zoom. We're not requiring that because some of our tutors are just not comfortable with it, but when things go back to normal, I think we'll be able to find some workarounds for some of those things. Okay, Carol. And these are some of the challenges that our particular program has. You've seen already those barriers to student learning. When I say stigma, what I mean is there are some programs like ours that work in public libraries, and that's ideal because people walk in and out of the library all sorts of, for all sorts of reasons. So if a student walks into the library, there's no stigma attached. But sometimes if you have to walk into a place that's proudly displaying Literacy Council, that might be a little bit of a thing. We also do insist that our tutors keep the names of their students confidential for obvious reasons. Tutor retention, you know, just by the nature of our volunteering, there are some people that would prefer to do short-term volunteering. This is more of a long-term commitment, so that can be somewhat of a challenge for us to find just the right people for that. Sometimes tutors have expressed the idea to us that they feel a little isolated because once they're trained and out there, they're working with their students without a lot of communication with other tutors. So Carol and I have tried to maintain some contact with the tutors and also to provide some times for them to socialize with other tutors. They learn a lot from just talking with each other. Oh, I'm having this problem. What have you done? Well, I found that I can do this and that works very well, that kind of thing. And then Carol, I don't know if you want to talk about operational fundraising.
I think it's like 8:27. So
Okay, well, I think we're finished. If anybody has any quick questions.
click to exit. Oh, there we go. So,
You have to click off share screen, I think.
oh.
Thank
which
you,
I-
ladies, for joining us this morning and kind of giving us an idea of what you do. Do you have any contact information you guys can put in the chat if anyone has questions or would be interested in helping out? They can reach out to you.
Sure.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
That would work because then they can see that information.
How do I open this screen? Whoop, nope.
Okay. And I'll put Carol's in there too.
Perfect, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the ladies?
Call us anytime.
I do.
Oh, good.
Go ahead.
I saw on your last slide that you were looking for tutoring spaces. Is that what I guess what it means is that you're looking for people or I guess places to hold these tutoring sessions?
Sometimes we are. That was a little bit more crucial to us a few years ago before Mead expanded what they were providing as far as small study rooms. We don't usually have a lot of problems. Generations in Plymouth has some areas. The Plymouth Library can be used. The Random Lake Library, you know, usually the public libraries around the county are superb for trying to help us find spaces. Some of the churches have too. The churches usually, if we approach them, they will say, sure, you can come and work here as long as we're open, which seems pretty reasonable to me. The bigger problem that we have is that some of the students just don't have transportation. So we do have a side program that we don't publicize a lot because it's not the ideal situation, but there are some, particularly some refugee moms who are not able to leave their homes because of childcare or cultural issues. So we have, on a few occasions, paired them with a tutor of the same gender and allowed them to work at the student home. But again, we don't make that a real big part of our program because, as you can imagine, it's not the most effective type of tutoring. There's a lot of distractions at home. The kids are usually around. So tutors can sometimes express frustrations to me about how they went to someone's house preparing a lesson and maybe got about 5 minutes in. So,
Yeah.
but we figure that it's better than nothing, quite truthfully. And that helps those moms in that they have a little bit less isolation. They then have an advocate and a mentor and someone that they can talk to. And just that discussion, of course, does help their English. Sometimes the tutors are using Google Translate to have these text-based conversations back and forth. But even that is something that helps that student feel a little bit more connected in our culture.
If you to reach out to Nan, so my name is Crystal, and get information, or I guess email me and let me know, you know, the needs for transportation and such like that, because we can help out with that.
Okay. Thank you. I should point out, though, that in some of the more traditional Muslim homes that we've been working with, the women are not allowed to go outside their home without a male family escort. So that can complicate things a little bit too.
One thing I just thought of was that young man I mentioned who is working at Sargento, but he lives on the south side of Sheboygan. Some family members drive him back and forth to work. He doesn't have a car, and he pays them. So I don't know if something could be worked out for that young man.
Yeah, that's a good
Absolutely.
idea, Carol.
I think that would be that's something in our realm of transportation that we could definitely help out with.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate
we
the
went
chance
over.
to tell you about our program.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ladies.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, so we'll keep moving right along. So we have Tim Sager from Thrive Financial here. Just to give you guys some educational information about stuff that they got going on, what they're doing right now, COVID-19 as well, as an additional resource for educational opportunities for adults. So go ahead, Tim.
Good morning. Good to see all of the some of the faces and all of the names here. I do recognize some people, so good to see some connections. I'll do my best to give an econ update in 15 minutes. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world right now, so try to boil it down to some important points. I'm going to try to share my screen here if that's all right. Let's see, I'm not the most tech-savvy person, so that works. So yeah, obviously we've had a pretty crazy stretch here in the economy and in the stock market, and it's certainly not over by any means. Again, my name is Tim Sager. I've been with Thriving about 10 years. I'm here in Sheboygan. I have an office over on Kohler Memorial Drive. And hopefully my kids will stay quiet enough through this that we can get through it. I tried to find the quietest hole in the basement I could to do this. So as you see here, a picture of a black swan. That's kind of what we in the economy call this event. It's a unexpected and very rare event that causes mass disruption. And that is what we're experiencing now with COVID-19. We saw the market go from record highs in February, and I'll get to a chart about this, to about a 30% decline in a matter of about 2 weeks, which is pretty incredible. I should say it's pretty unprecedented. And just as a check-in, I know how my wife works in health insurance and I work in investments, so us being home and trying to process this has been crazy, and I'm sure you can all relate in some level that shifting your whole life to being kind of trapped into the four walls of your house and trying to function and run a business or report to a business and provide value has been challenging, as well as the distractions of the access we have to news and the access we have to data, and it's constantly changing. And so this was just kind of put in here as a pulse on how people are feeling, as you know, how often are we checking our phones? How often are we watching CNN? How long are we watching some of these news cycles, watching the press conferences and things like that? And can we get ourselves to turn it off a little bit just to try to find some sanity in this crazy world? So as an economic update, again, trying to keep moving because I also want to be available if anybody has any specific questions. We'll talk about three main things. We'll put a little bit of historical perspective around what's going on. We'll talk a little bit about the CARES Act. Some of this is because this was created at the end of the quarter. Our economic updates are always created at the end of the quarter. So it's a month old now. I realize there's been a lot of news and a lot of changes since then. So we'll go on over that as well. And then a little bit of strategies to keeping on track here through this process. So obviously we've all seen this picture a million times of the coronavirus molecule. But here is a perspective of the last, or since 1950, really. Every green kind of mountain that you see there is a bull market in the economy, and every red decline there is what a bear market or a recession has looked like. So as you can see from trying to keep things in a little bit of perspective, because they always feel a little bit like the end of the world and when we're in the middle of them, you know, and I'll kind of look at the 90s. As you see there, we had a little blip in the 80s, and then we had probably the greatest run in the stock market over the course of about 12, 13 years, through the 90s and into that dot-com bubble that happened in 99, 2000, and then kind of carried over to 9/11 in 2001. The total return of the stock market in that time was 582%. And the drop in 31 months in 2000 to 2001 was about half, about 50%. The thing I always like to point out, though, with this chart, not to be misleading, is that if you lose 50% of the value of your portfolio and the market goes back up 50%, you're not whole, right? You've gained 50% on half of what you had before. So you really the market needs to go up 100% to get back to where you were. So losses obviously take more energy to get back than just dollar for dollar, if that makes sense, or percentage for percentage, I should say. And then you see after 99, 2000, we had what we call, or beginning to call, the lost decade, because we had some expansion through 2007 and 8, and then really gave it all back again in the 2008 financial crisis. Since then, things have continued to grow, and we were at record unemployment levels, record low unemployment levels, record highs in the stock market. There were a lot of really positive things happening in February. You could argue there was some concerns underlying some of those things going into February, but overall the economy had an incredible run of 10 years of expansion leading up to this coronavirus incident. So it was a big disruptor that we virtually have shut down our economy, which is something we've never really done before. We've never had an outbreak where we had to do that completely since, I think, the Spanish flu back in the early 1900s. So this chart here is really just tracking the current financial crisis over the 2008-2009 crisis. So if we take the 100 being the peak of the market, this chart is now a month old. So what you would see now, if it was year to date or current, is that we would probably be somewhere around right below this 20 here, actually probably right about there, and where we are in the market today. We've had a significant run back from the bottom that we hit on March 23rd. A lot of that due to fiscal policy. The Federal Reserve has put out the CARES Act, which we'll get into, has sent checks to a lot of people in the mail or direct deposit, has offered some bailout options for the airlines and for other industries, and has really tried to be hyper accommodating as far as their purchasing of assets. The Federal Reserve tries to buoy the market by purchasing up treasuries right now, purchasing up corporate bonds, and they're even talking about purchasing high yield bonds of companies that are in distress, which is something we've never experienced before from the Federal Reserve. So we are in a position where we've had an event that was unprecedented, we've had a response that is unprecedented, and it's very hard to try to predict where we think things are going to go because this is such new territory. If we followed before the Federal Reserve's push, we were really tracking right along with 2008 and 2009, and that would mean that our bottom would be somewhere out over here. So while we had the sharp drop in March, if you remember in 2008 and 9, the sharp drop happened in September, but it took until March of 2009 to really bottom out. And you can see there were some significant rallies inside that. So the concern is always to be a little cautious about whether we're in the clear or not when we have these big runs up in the market, because we've had this before. So will this time be different? That's the big question. Trying to keep some perspective on how things have done, and I feel like this is, unfortunately I can't cut slides out of this, but I feel like this is a little unfair because these are all the other outbreaks that we've had and how the market has responded to them. We've never had to shut the economy down to the level we have for any of these other outbreaks, though. So it's really hard to use that as a comparison because business as usual kind of continued through the course of those. And obviously that hasn't happened this time around. This chart is, because it is a month old or so, is not nearly as alarming as it should be. And I think it's pretty alarming in itself. This is our new unemployment claims numbers tracking all the way back from 05. Here is the economic downturn in 08 and 09. Here is 1 week's worth of claims in the end of March. It was about 6 million people that claimed. We are now, after today's numbers that came out, we are at 30 million. So if we wanted to rechart this, we would have 4 more weeks and this would be 30,000 on this side of the chart. So we are, again, in unprecedented times. We hope that a lot of that is temporary. At the same time, it's hard to predict what's going to happen moving forward. But we do know that 30 million people have claimed for unemployment in the past 6 weeks, which is by far more than we've ever experienced before. Again, black swan event, which creates lots of projecting and lots of trying to assume or trying to predict what's going to happen. And the reality is none of us are probably going to be correct. The market, again, has run up to where we're only about 13% down from the highs right now. I would be cautious to say I don't know that that's going to realistically stay there. I think that we certainly are going to see some other rocky times before we're done with this. We'll get into the CARES Act, like the payroll protection loans that came out that allowed small businesses to employ their workers and have their payroll covered by the government for 8 weeks. One of the challenges I think that may come out of this is that if you got your payroll protection loan in the beginning of that 8 weeks, or when that first came out, you're already probably 2 weeks into that loan now. And are you going to be able to fully staff your business and be up and running 6 weeks from now? And if not, what's going to happen when that payroll protection money runs out? Are you going to be able to keep your staff on, or are you going to have to consider laying people off to right size your business for what the demand calls for? So the Federal Reserve has said they are all into doing whatever it takes to keep the economy afloat, which is partly why I think the stock market is where it is, because there's this certain feeling that if it gets bad, they'll step in and fix it. And that may be true. We've already spent $5 trillion on this economy. We spent about $800 billion in 2008-9. So the numbers are pretty staggering, but that may be what's necessary. So whether there's another relief program coming down the line, we'll have to wait and see. But the Fed kind of said yesterday when they met that they expected to do more. They didn't specify what that would look like. So again, with the CARES Act, the PPP loans are the payroll protection loans are small business loans. If you're an owner of a small business or self-employed, if you haven't looked into those yet, I would contact your local bank and talk to them about it. You may be eligible to get some relief. There was also some economic disaster loans that were like a grant that was available for small businesses. And I think I've talked to a few people that have taken advantage of that as well. If you're a nonprofit person, you also are eligible for the payroll protection loans. If you work for a church, you're also eligible for those. So I've consulted a few people on them. I don't claim to know all the nuances of it, but I've done a lot of homework on it. So I'll have some contact information at the end of this. If you have a question and you just want to ask without getting into the banking process, I'm happy to try to answer it or do some homework for you. The big thing for employees is that the CARES Act created a window of ability to access your 401k plan or your retirement plan, take out up to $100,000 of that plan, and there's no 10% early withdrawal penalty. They've waived that penalty. They've also created it so that you can either pay the taxes on what you've taken out over the next 3 years, or you can even pay it back over the next 3 years and not have to pay the taxes on it. So they're trying to create some liquidity for people where they can access things. A couple things to think about with that is that if you're going to take it out and spend it, the market is still down 13%. So you are selling those assets at a loss and then spending the money. So you're kind of locking in those losses. Obviously, Obviously, that looks better today than it did a month ago. If you wait and a month from now, we kind of head back down a little bit, you may exacerbate those losses by taking the money out. The other thing is that money is not in your account growing for your future. So that may be contributions you put in plus gains that you're now taking out that are not going to compound over time, and it may put you behind on your plan to retire in the future. But obviously, there are people in struggling positions right now that need those short-term infusions of dollars to pay bills and keep things going. The other thing to note, and this is just a side note with this, you have to have been impacted by coronavirus for this to be taken out. What that looks like is either you've had it, a family member has had it, or you've had your hours reduced, pay cut, somehow you've been financially adversely impacted by the coronavirus. So if you're working salaried and you're still paid the normal amount, you're really not eligible for this. But if you're working salaried and you're paid the normal amount and your spouse has been impacted, you would be eligible for this. So they've also waived minimum distributions. I don't know that anybody on this call is pushing 70 and a half, so I don't know that this is relevant. But if it is, or if you know somebody that is, the government requires that you take out of your pre-tax retirement accounts once you hit 70 and a half. That number actually changes 72 in December, but they've waived that you have to do that if you fall into that category for this year. As far as investing strategies go, it's pretty tough to say, buy this, don't buy that. I'm certainly not going to tell you to buy this stock and not this stock at this point in time. Obviously, the stocks that have done very well are the ones that were really built for this kind of thing. Amazon, Roku, Netflix, all the homebound kind of businesses have done very well. Businesses that have struggled a bit, Uber, Lyft, obviously they're not having seen nearly the traffic they normally would. Car manufacturers are seeing huge drops in sales. Oil is a mess right now, and so while oil stocks have come back, they've been absolutely crushed. Places in the market, the top 10% of the S&P 500 has really driven this whole rebound in the economy. If you go back and look, I think that the top 50 stocks in the S&P 500 are only down about 10% for the year, whereas a lot of the smaller businesses that are publicly traded are down 30 to 40% still for the year. So the challenging part now is that because of that, the S&P 500 is 500 different companies, but I'd say about 20% of its value is isolated to really a handful of companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, and a few others. So when they have good days, the whole market kind of moves on them. It doesn't mean everybody's having a good day. It just means that they have so much strength in that they actually can move everything. So it's a unique place we are in right now. If you are currently invested in your retirement account and you're diversified and you're aggressive, I would just stay there and ride it out and continue to add with those paychecks and invest for the long term. If you are sitting on money at home and you're thinking about putting it in the stock market, I might give it a couple of weeks and see what happens, because I do think we may bounce downward from where we are today, but that's just a guess. I certainly don't claim to know exactly where it's going, but it does appear that we've had a significant run, and some of that is just on good news or hopes for good news. So this is a little bit of a well-balanced retirement plan. If you want to talk about retirement planning, I would do that offline from this because it's a short period of time we have here. Something to think about though, if you have assets that are in a retirement account that are pre-tax currently, if you are adversely affected, if your income's going to be down this year, but you have savings, and if you have money in a pre-tax account, meaning you put money in before taxes off your paycheck, your company matched it, and you have control of those assets. So if it's still in a 401k, a company you're working for, you may not be able to do this, but if it's in an IRA that you rolled over from leaving that company, or money you put away in an IRA prior, you may want to consider converting that to a Roth IRA. If your income is going to be down, you may pay less taxes on it. The share prices are down right now, so you're converting more shares. That makes sense. And then when the market bounces back up, that money will be in a Roth IRA instead of in an IRA. And you could just take advantage of the current circumstances to try to get more money over that tax line at the right timing. Because once it's in that Roth IRA, if you keep it in there until you're 59 and a half, you can take it all out tax-free in the future. So that's one piece of, I guess, direct planning advice that I would consider if the situation fits, is to consider a Roth conversion on IRA assets. The thing to note about that is that you pay for the taxes on that Roth IRA conversion from money outside of the conversion. So you don't take a little extra out of the IRA to pay taxes generally. So if you don't have the money in savings, or if you're concerned that that may be an issue, then I would not do this, because you don't want to come into April next year and find out a tax surprise that you owe a couple $1,000s that you don't have. So certainly don't want to put anybody in a position where they're going to be pinched on their cash flow or their emergency reserve to do this. But if the situation fits, this is something that may be advantageous long term. Thank you. That's the majority of what I had. Thrivent, we have an asset management team that puts this together. They have 40 years of, we've been doing mutual funds. Our investment professionals are incredibly skilled. They're incredibly qualified. And we pride ourselves on having a very long-term approach to how we do things. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can go to thrivent.com/yourstreet. There's some great articles and some great information on there to find out a little bit more from our asset management team. And again, this is my contact info. If anybody has a specific question they want to talk about that's not appropriate in front of everybody, or if they just want to check in with me offline, because I know I'm cutting time here, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hello, April.
Anything.
Hi.
Thanks, Tim. That was really great.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, very informative. Thank you, Tim, for giving us an update and kind of an outlook if some of us haven't seen some of that stuff.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of just had
The
to pause.
news or what's going on, so. Awesome. If anyone has any questions for Tim, does anyone have any? Doesn't look like it. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining us. If anyone does have questions, they can always reach out to you offline then. Thank you. All right, so our next presenter is on. Her name is Jenny. She is from Junior Achievement. So I will let her dig into Junior Achievement and what it does. It's a very cool program. I just started helping this year and it got cut short, so I'm sad, but I had fun for a few weeks with some students. But I'll let Jenny talk about Junior Achievement and what they're doing in Sheboygan County.
All right, good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you for inviting me to share a little bit about what Junior Achievement is and what we've been doing since COVID-19 happened to us all well, actually, are we on like 45 days? Started to lose count. So Junior Achievement is a nonprofit organization. Last year we celebrated our 100th year. I was kind of scrolling through to see, as I was waiting to present, to see who was on here, and I recognized a few names. So I know that some of you, like Nellie had said, are volunteers with our organization. So what we do is we provide financial literacy curriculum to students throughout the country, but I specifically work with Sheboygan County educators. And this past year, we had 286 educators at every single school throughout Sheboygan County ask for our programming. And then traditionally, that's led with volunteers. So Nellie's a volunteer, and so she got matched with a teacher. And traditionally, then she would go into that classroom for 5 or 6 times and teach a short, like 30 to 45-minute lesson that Junior Achievement creates based specifically for that age. And educators certainly could teach this material, but what we found is in our business model, it's best taught if a volunteer can teach it instead of the same, that's my dog in the background, go away. This is one of the benefits of working from home. So, so it's best if a volunteer can go in, because then the students see somebody other than the same teacher every single day, and they get that real life experience to and that material that we're presenting gets brought to life. So because we're in the schools, we had a significant impact to our programming when we got the call that schools were closed. So our JAUSA is, our office is out of Colorado Springs, and I was really impressed. Within 1 week, they went ahead and converted most of our material that comes in these big kits. It's all the material you would need for 32 students times the 5 or 6 weeks. So when Nellie picked up her kit, it was a big bag of materials. So if we can't go into schools, we have to obviously change how we are going to deliver that programming to students. So JAUSA went ahead and provided most of these resources online free. We normally provide the material free to educators anyways. We are a nonprofit, but we have a lot of grants and we get a lot of financial commitment from the community. So we went ahead and put everything online, and I will share after the call the website, because even if you're not an educator, you're a caring adult who has children that you're maybe looking over, or parents, some of us are in the capacity now where we're also homeschooling our own children. So we have additional resources, not just our full materials, but fun activities that kids can do to learn about money. They can, as little as the kindergartners, can learn about needs and wants. And then we've had weekly different resources that have been coming out, and last week's was all about how COVID is affecting when you're going to the store and how come you're not seeing stocked shelves. So we have different material that they're creating on a weekly basis, and we're putting it up on a website called Inspiring Tomorrow. So I'll share the link with the group, and then you can pass it around to everybody that's on the call. And if you have anybody that, any students, or I even watched one of the short little videos yesterday that I thought was pretty informational. So what I've kind of been finding throughout the community with the educators that I work with yearly is a lot of our educators are just really overwhelmed. They had to go from their traditional in the classroom teaching method to now they're doing it virtually, from kindergartners all the way to high schoolers. So at the middle and high school level, most of the children throughout Sheboygan County already have, we call it a 1-to-1 ratio. So children already have some sort of piece of equipment where they can do virtual learning from home, like a Chromebook or a laptop. The Sheboygan Area School District has been really good about getting equipment into the younger children who don't maybe have access at home, so that we can continue to do virtual learning, because as we learned, now schools are closed for the remaining of the school year. So our educators have had to transition. I had to communicate with 200 plus volunteers to say, we really appreciate your time and commitment, but it's going to look a little differently. So some of my volunteers have been working with their teachers to do just like we're doing now, a Zoom session with the class. So the whole class will get online at 2 o'clock, and my junior achievement volunteer will teach their lesson. If that can't happen in some cases, then the teacher is teaching the junior achievement curriculum. So it's going to look a lot differently for junior achievement this year, but what we're excited about is that we still have the ability to impact these children and provide this financial literacy material to them free. And we've had a lot of educators and parents logging into our website to grab these resources and provide them to their children. So we do not know what it's going to look like next year. So we're kind of just bending and pivoting and going with what we hear from the school board. We do have the school board, 2 representatives from the Sheboygan Area School Board that sit on our board of directors. So I've been asking them if they have any updates, but we've heard that possibly next year schools won't want volunteers to come back in, just because if we see an additional COVID outbreak in the fall, things may look different. There's been some talk about school maybe being delayed in the fall. I don't know how long I can homeschool and work from home. I don't know how many of you are doing the same thing, but we're just pivoting and going with it's uncharted territory. We just have to kind of transition. So does anybody have any questions about junior achievement? Or how to get involved? Because we always, even though we don't have the same model right now, we still have opportunities for people to get involved and present materials to students. I see a lot of black boxes. Nobody wants to show their face this early in the morning.
It's a quiet group too.
The quiet group. All right, so if anybody, I will pass along our Inspiring's Tomorrow's website so you can check out the resources we have available. And then next fall, every year I have between 275 and 300 educators that are looking for a volunteer from the community to come in. So it's a great opportunity for anybody that's in banking or economics or finance. And I have a lot of stay-at-home moms that maybe have taken some time off, stay-at-home dads, taken some time off to raise kids that just want to still get involved and be impactful in their son or daughter's classroom. So I have quite a few volunteers that will work their way up from K all the way to 12, and they'll volunteer every year and teach a different junior achievement lesson. So I can certainly match you with your son or daughter's class and however that looks. I guess my biggest impression of the educators is, yes, they are overwhelmed, but they're still doing a fantastic job. And every educator that I reach out to, I'm just really impressed with what they're doing. Even I have a middle schooler, and just the contact that he has every single day from all of his educators. So every time I reach back out to one of them, just very gracious for what they're doing. And they didn't expect this to happen, like none of us did, but they've transitioned and went along, and just we're doing what we have to do one day at a time.
Yes.
So it's just a little overview about what Junior Achievement does. I thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome. I'll
Hopefully
send that
we'll
along.
get
You
back
guys
in the
can,
classroom soon.
I know we want you
I
back
miss
in
the
the
kids. It's a
classroom.
lot of fun to do Junior Achievement. I was really scared and nervous, but the kids are so fun, and they just like, they're really cute and fun. So I really enjoyed it. So I can't wait to get back. So
I know our volunteers are missing the hugs. It's different when you're on a Zoom call. You just get waves and
Yeah.
in the chat box. So enjoy the rest of your day. I'll send you some information to review.
thank you, Jenny.
Okay, have a good day.
All right, so next we have Carol from the Mead Public Library. Are you here, Carol? I thought I saw your name. 1 second. Oh. Oh no, her name's gone. Is Carol here from the library?
Yep, my Wi-Fi just cut out. Sorry,
Okay.
and so I had to disconnect and reconnect real quick.
No,
there.
that's okay. Oh, let me. My thing's all weird now too. Okay, so Carol is one of the group presentations from one of our groups from Mead Public Library. So she can talk to you about what they've been doing and how they've been transitioning during this time and what they all offer for educational opportunities as well through the library. So go ahead, Carol.
I'm going to start by having. Okay, great. Matt, you with me?
Yo.
All right. So my name is Carol, and I am. There we go. I'm one of the public services librarians at Mead Public Library, and joining me today is Matt Beineman. He is our teen and youth services librarian. We're going to talk mostly actually about the virtual library card system that we implemented a while back and what that's meant for our teens, and then a little bit about how that's impacting them right now. We were initially prepared to come in and talk about the leadership aspect of this, and so we're a little bit more focused on the ways in which that program has involved us working with the Sheboygan Area School District and what that's ultimately ended up looking like. And then we'll maybe delve a little bit into the library and COVID at the end of this. So Matt, if you want to get us off the ground.
Sure, let me see. I'm going to try to share my screen. And everybody can see our presentation. All right, looks good.
Yep.
Fantastic. So we paired up with the Sheboygan Area School District a while back to implement these cards. So I'm just going to kind of cover the stats very briefly. Sheboygan, as I'm sure most of you know, is a city of about 50,000 people. The library itself is actually responsible for covering a little more than that, 64,000. And that extends sort of out into the non-library towns in the county. So we are also, as the local resource library, the big library in the area, we're responsible for providing them service as well. The Sheboygan Area School District covers the city of Sheboygan, 2 outlying townships, that's Town of Sheboygan and Town of Wilson, and then the village of Cleveland in Manitowoc County. They've got a student body of about 10,000 students, and as you can see, a number of schools, so pre-K, elementary, middle, high school, and then the 8 district-run charter schools as well. And then the library is part of a larger library system. It's called Monarch, and that's a 4-county system: Ozaukee, Washington, Sheboygan, and Dodge counties. All of those libraries are unified into one kind of overarching system. So what is a virtual library card, and why did we bother to put it into place? Very simply, a virtual library card is a library card that allows SASD students limited access to library services. So what does and doesn't it allow them to do? They are able to access leisure reading online through Hoopla, Libby, and Libby is part of a service called Overdrive. So they're able to access books and audiobooks through those services. They can also access streaming services through Canopy and Hoopla, so music, movies, and TV shows. And then on the kind of the more practical education end of things, we have a number of databases and online resources that include just basically virtual copies of reference books. So the ones that you would come in and normally see, you know, the big thick tomes sitting on our shelves that look like they're probably going to break your wrists if you handle them with too much liberty. Those are online in, at least in part, and we also have a selection of databases that we've reviewed for, you know, their quality, they've been vetted, and they're able to access those with these cards as well. Not that it matters right now, but if they come in, our computers require a library card to log on to. And their virtual library cards allow access to those as well. That was a problem that we had a lot before students had access to these, is coming in and trying to use machines that they couldn't get to. And then our summer reading program, they are able to sign up for now as well, to encourage them to continue reading on their own over the summer. And of course, we incentivize that with prizes. For what they can't access, it's mostly just the physical materials, books, movies, video games. They can't check out and take home just the actual physical items. They have to use the digital resources. So things that make the VLC a good choice. Each SASD student is assigned a virtual library card. When they enter the system, they're assigned a student ID. They maybe don't know about what that is until they're a little older, but they do have one. So once they are a registered student, they get a card, and that's just the end of it, unless their parents opt them out. It means that they can access all of those digital services. And that's really advantageous, because digital services, there's nothing physical, there's nothing that can be late, which means that digital services never accrue fines. It also allows us to keep student account information synced up with the school system. We used to run into problems where students would come in, give us their information, they'd moved, phone numbers had changed, and we were telling them that no, you can't use our stuff because what we have on record and what you're telling us, those two things don't match up. So according to our records, you're wrong, and we can't let you use our resources. And that takes care of that problem. It also allows us to minimize overlap in resources between the school libraries and the public library. As you can imagine, we're both institutions working with limitations on our funding. So this allows us to kind of collaborate with each other and make the best use of those funds for especially digital resources. It also takes a lot of, having a virtual library card also takes a lot of barriers out of the way. The biggest one is that parents no longer need to come to the library to sign for the card. Sheboygan's got a large manufacturing base. A lot of parents work off hours because of their shifts, and this means that they no longer have to find their way to the building with their kids at a time that might not otherwise be a great fit for them. Cards automatically assigned takes that barrier right out of the way. Students sometimes also come to us with fines existing on their cards, whether that's from books that they had long overdue when they were much younger, or maybe even lost, because I can't tell you how many times a picture book has gone under a car seat and never returned. But they're able to use the virtual library card despite fines. And in addition, as I mentioned before, because there's nothing physical to check out, those digital resources cannot accrue fines. They never have to worry about being charged anything on those cards. At this time, especially, this is important. They are able to get remote access to high quality research material for school without physical library visits. Before, this was really nice for students who weren't able to make a trip in with their parents, or they were kind of late night trying to get it done last minute. They could just get it from home. Now, this is, I think, more important than ever. They're able to access both leisure reading and research remotely. And this isn't something that we'd really, I think, actively focused on when we were implementing this program, but it has been an outcome. It's increased digital parity. So low-income students now have access to streaming movies and TV shows in the way that we might see in a more middle-income household having access to Netflix or Hulu. There's not necessarily the same variety of access, but there is at least a limited point of entry to that type of service. So Matt's going to talk a little bit about how we implemented this, because he was very much part of the team that put this into place.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk about how we went about making this collaboration work. So we had been hearing at different statewide library conferences and other events that we had attended that other libraries were thinking about doing this, and that they had were looking to implement some library card that was a virtual library card that would allow access to everybody. And so we did some more additional research, looked into where other libraries had done so. We had researched that Nashville had done it. So we started looking a little bit closer to home, trying to find libraries that were more local, and discovered that our very close neighbor Manitowoc had actually implemented a virtual library card the year before we started looking into it. So one of the first things we did is we arranged to visit with Manitowoc and find out exactly what it was that they had done. And as part of that, we made an effort to visit with them, talk to all the people, the key people in the process for them. And after meeting with them, we realized that it was going to be very important to have our IT staff involved, because there's a lot of data transfer. So the first thing that we did is the Mead Library Director and our system IT, which is Monarch Library System, and the Mead Library's IT people all met to confirm that our library system had the required capabilities to actually implement this process. And then we realized that we needed to make sure that we had input from the Sheboygan Area School District and that they had interest in it. So our director reached out to Superintendent of Schools. This was right at the transition between Joe Sheehan and current Superintendent Seth Harbertine. So it was right when he was looking for, I think he may have been just looking for a really cool project to start with his tenure on. So we were really lucky at that point. So we met with the Sheboygan Area School District Superintendent, their IT, our management, our IT, Monarch's director, Monarch's IT, so that they could really figure out exactly how to get all this data to transfer properly with our catalog system and with the databases that the school district keeps on all of their students. And then we wanted to make sure that we were able to get that transfer to work regularly. One of the things that we were worried about is that students who are new to the district wouldn't get their cards in a timely fashion. So we decided that the easiest way to do that was to make sure that these data exchanges happened on a quarterly basis. So basically, as a student enters the school district, they will get their card at some point at each quarter. Most of the students in the district get their card right when they register at the beginning of the school year, but if they're new to the district mid-year, then it comes out quarterly. We just get brand new data. And when students leave the district, their card actually does stay on file with the library until the end of the school year. We do a fresh batch at the end of the summer. And then we wanted to make sure that everybody was going to get this card. We just wanted to make sure that all students understood that they had this card and that they could use it. So we had to come up with some marketing strategies. So we wanted to focus on what students could do with their card. So all the things that Carol was talking about earlier, that they would be able to check out digital materials, that they would be able to use our computers. So we had a landing page and a link on our website that could show students exactly how their cards worked. It actually explains what their card number is on their page. All the students have a student ID number that's associated with them their entire time that they're in the school district. So we wanted to make sure that they had a number they were familiar with. So all students have a prefix number that's exactly the same. It's 0035. And then their library card number, their student ID number, sorry, is the rest of that number. So it's a 10-digit number, just like the rest of Mead Library's card numbers. And then we also included all that information on a printed handout that we provided to the school district so that they could distribute it to parents and students. And then one of the things I get to do every year is I go to visit all the middle schools at the beginning of the school year and get to spend a day or a couple days usually at each school talking to every single class. And the years that we've used this started in 2018, the 2018-2019 school year. That's been our focus. In the past, I had been going to those middle schools and doing a library card sign-up drive and getting all the kids to sign up for a new card physically. But now that we have our virtual library card, we just focus on that and explain, hey, you already have a library card that you can use. And then in our libraries, the teen areas of the library, we put up some additional signage, especially in the areas where they have access to the computers, so that students realize that, hey, if you're a Sheboygan Area School District student, you can get onto any of our computers in the teen areas with this very simple card. And of course, the main source of our marketing was always going to be the Sheboygan Area School District's teachers and librarians. They have daily contact with students and parents that we often don't see at the library. So they're able to communicate this right to those people. And we were able to also get all that information directly to parents and students at the beginning of the school year in their start of year registration packets. And we can also ask the librarians at the schools to include any information in their newsletters that get sent out to students throughout the school year. And because they have that direct contact with all the students that we don't, they can talk about the virtual library card and they can demonstrate how to use it, and they can encourage their students to access all the databases that are available to them. And then as more students use it, we really hope that they talk to each other about what they've found, what resources they're using and are able to use at this point. It's kind of funny, at the library, we do often hear other teens explaining to their peers that, hey, you have this virtual library card number. They'll ask me if they can go on a computer, and if they need a library card, and their friends will just say, hey, you can just use this number and it'll work. So they are already starting to explain it to each other, which is nice to see. So we've had a chance to gather some data to see if there's been any changes in what we're providing, usage stats. Now that we've implemented this, is, like I said, this is the second school year that we've had virtual library cards. So what we've seen so far, other than the very nice boost to our library card signups, when in about 20 minutes when we first implemented the very first data set, and we got 10,000 brand new library card registrations in that kind of a split second, that there's just that much more access available to all the students in the Sheboygan Area School District that they can use these services now that they weren't able to before without because they didn't have a physical library card. So as of right now, our Hoopla service, which is a streaming service that streams music, TV, movies, and also has access to ebooks and comics. Our virtual library card holders are about 1 in 5 of those users at this point, which is pretty significant. And then within that first quarter of the virtual library cards being implemented, we saw a 30% increase in Hoopla usage. So we were very happy about that. And our summer reading program for teens, which is always a big draw, had a huge increase in usage, mainly because the program itself has always required that a teen have a library card to participate. So with the implementation of the virtual library card, that just so many more students were able to sign up, and we had a 250 participant increase that first year of having virtual library cards. So hopefully we'll see another increase this year. It's going to be a little tough to go out to the schools and tell everybody about the program this year because they're not actually in the buildings, but our program starts May 18th, so we'll see how that all goes. All right, so we're all through. Does anybody have any questions about what we were talking about?
Quiet group is right. That's all right. It's more early in the morning. I'm running on tea at this point. So,
I'm on my second Mountain Dew.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk about briefly, since it sounds like that's sort of on everybody's mind, understandably, is libraries and response to COVID. So we've been doing a few things. The first and foremost is that librarians always consider ourselves information professionals, and that's, you know, part of what we do is learn to do research and vet sources. So kind of the first response that we had was to aggregate a page of reliable information, and that's up on our website. The next thing that we really ran into is, of course, people wanting to be able to keep getting materials. And we closed our building in March, right around the same time that the schools closed. We have really been focusing on those streaming and ebook resources. I know we've just talked a lot about how they're available to students. They're really available to anybody with a library card, and we are allowing digital library card signups so that people can continue, you know, first-time library users are also able to get at those even though we're not in the building to sign them up anymore. And the thing that I think we're probably all most excited about that we've been able to do that kind of makes us all feel like we're making really tangible contributions is that earlier this year we were able to obtain through a grant, I believe it was 7, Matt, is it 7 3D printers?
That sounds right.
Yeah, and so we weren't able to get the kind of plastic that allowed you to print face masks or medical parts, but we were able to get the kind of plastic that allows you to print the ear savers for medical professionals who are wearing masks all day. And so we have been doing batches of those, and I think we were all really happy to see that these machines that we'd recently gotten were really able to be put to good use. So that's a little bit about what we've been doing. We've kind of been continuing to run reference and others, readers advisory, so book recommendation services with the building closed. But we have found ourselves getting a lot of questions now, hoping for that curbside pickup that Governor Evers has just authorized. A lot of people have been asking after that, so we're hoping to get that up and running next Monday. So any other questions not related maybe to the virtual library cards and Sheboygan Area School District before we sign off?
Carol, there's just some comments that people put in. I don't know if you saw them, but one of the comments is, I was told about the awesome reputation of the Mead Library before moving to Sheboygan County. The innovation and ways you guys lead the community is outstanding. So that's just very awesome to hear that you guys are well known even outside of Sheboygan County. And then there was another comment about the 3D printing. It's amazing. So glad that you guys are getting involved with that. Thank you for doing that for the people out there in the front lines for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We were really happy to find a way to contribute, because it's gratifying to see that we have these machines and that they are able to be put to use for a greater good beyond just sort of a concept, to see it really go into practice. I think we were all very happy about that.
One more thing. You guys just redid the outside of the Mead Library over the last year or so. Do you want to just give us a quick update about that? And then if there's any other questions?
I would love to, but the thing is, we can't claim credit for it. It's been beautiful to see it done. Technically speaking, that green space is not the library's. So we had some input into that process, but most of that was actually run through city planning. So Nancy over there, or maybe Chad, could talk to you about how that came together. But that was actually truthfully a city project.
Yes, and we were very happy with the way it turned out, even though we weren't in charge.
It is nice to have green space out there.
Yeah, it definitely looks nice and nice here, so. Awesome. If no one else has any other questions, thank you guys for joining us so much and kind of letting us know what you're doing at this time, and helping people in the community and being resources for them as well, so.
Yep, and our contact information should still be up on the screen, so if you need to get in contact with either Carol or myself, there you go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Have a good day.
All right, guys, so we'll just keep on moving right along here today. So our next presenter, we have Amy from the Girl Scouts, as to talk about what the Girl Scouts offers and how they work with students in our communities as well. So Amy, if you are ready to rock and roll, we are ready for you.
Great. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry, my video is not working, so you just have a picture of me. I'm really not trying to hide technical difficulties, but anyhow, yes, my name is Amy Odekirk. I'm the Director of Program Quality for the Girl Scouts of Manitou Council. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back in front of Leadership Sheboygan County. I actually went through the program back in 2016, and I have really fond memories of everything that I did in Leadership Sheboygan County. Learned a ton, and I hope that all of you are loving it as much as I did. So wanted to dive into the world of Girl Scouts. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Girl Scouts, familiar with the cookies and camping, but a few things I'm guessing some of you aren't as familiar with. One being that the Girl Scouts actually have a research institute. And we are very proud of the fact that our decisions are data driven, and we're proud of the fact that we know girls really well. We've been doing it for 108 years, and we feel like it shows. So the next several slides, you'll notice that data driven information is there. So I'll just get into it. Maybe. There we go. So every 3 girls in Sheboygan County in Sheboygan County grade schools is a Girl Scout. And some of our outcomes that we measure are decision making, ethics, and community service. And just to give you an idea of those outcomes, about 94% of our Girl Scouts in Sheboygan County participate in community service every year. And nearly 50% of girls give service at least 3 times a year. So that's pretty, I think that's pretty great. And then also 85% of our girls, Girl Scouts, have improved in decision making, goal setting, and independence. In Girl Scouting, we also know that having a supportive female role model in an all-girl setting is really important. And you can see that here in this chart that there is a big difference between Girl Scouts and non-Girl Scouts when it comes to having a female role model in their life, helping them pursue their goals and think about their future. This is even more apparent when it comes to families, low-income families. Those low-income families that have a female role model in Girl Scouting actually totally eliminates that disparity. Girl Scouts is also really proud of the fact that we help girls, teens, preserve confidence through their teen years. Although it's pretty common for girls in their teen years to have declined in self-confidence, we actually see that Girl Scouts actually have a slight lift during those times. And the same can be said for their view of the future. As they enter their teens, they see a slight lift. So that's also really positive. However, we see some real sad underrepresentation of leadership roles in especially STEM fields, as you can see in this slide, with the low percentages of female representation in STEM fields. But even though women are underrepresented in those leadership of business, tech, and government, those who were Girl Scouts are actually highly represented in those pools. So of the 15% of business leaders who are women, 50% were Girl Scouts. Of the 27% of tech leaders who are women, 80% were Girl Scouts. Of the 15% of Congress who are women, 76% were Girl Scouts. And 100% of all female secretaries of state were Girl Scouts. Also, all of the women who have flown to space were Girl Scouts. Fun fact. And as we move forward into the future, Girl Scouts are working in cooperation with some of the largest tech companies in the country. We're trying to bridge that gender gap in technology and building girls with their enthusiasm, confidence, and greater skills. In fact, Girl Scouts of Manitou Council is working right now with Kohler Company to try and provide some partnerships so that we can help bridge that gap right here in Sheboygan County and our surrounding area. I think I forgot to mention in my intro too that Girl Scouts of Manitou Council, while we cover Sheboygan County, we actually cover a surrounding area of 7 counties. We go all the way up to Calumet, Manitowoc County, Fond du Lac, Washington, and Dodge, and Ozaukee County. There we go. We have 7 counties that we cover. All right. So who's going to create all these advances in science? Well, Girl Scouts has a badge for that. This is a small sampling of some of the STEM related badges that Girl Scouts have related to STEM. These robotics badges are fairly new. In addition, we have programmer and cybersecurity badges. I know we have coding badges, ranging all the way from kindergartners through high school. And again, this is just a small sampling of the hundreds of badges that Girl Scouts have. In fact, there are more coming out this summer related to STEM, outdoor, and civic engagement. In fact, here's a sampling of our current civic badges. There will be more coming out this summer, and then also some of our outdoor badges as well. Our resources are pretty vast for our volunteers. We, in the past, if any of you are familiar with Girl Scouts, you may be familiar with actual badge books. But we're really proud of our new online resources, the Volunteer Toolkit, which is a online platform that our leaders can use anywhere on their tablet, on their phone, on their computer, to be able to create year plans and troop meeting plans with their girls so that they can create something that's specific to their girls and what they need. And it's just been a great resource. Our leaders are really loving the new resources online to be able to, like I said, take them with them anywhere and not be lugging around big badge books. While I'm on the outdoor badge section too, I also want to mention that we have 2 beautiful camps. If you're not already familiar with our camps, Camp Evelyn is just outside of Plymouth, right on the Mullet River, and we also have Camp Manitou, which is in Shodo near 2 Rivers. Both camps have heated buildings that are used year-round, not only by our troops, but also outside groups. So we have businesses that occasionally do outings. We have families that rent them. We've even had some weddings out at our camps. And of course, summer camp. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about summer camp right now, just as much as we are. We've been doing a ton of contingency planning, holding out some hope that we'll be able to hold summer camp this summer, maybe delayed, most likely delayed if at all. Lots of unknowns. We're thinking it's probably going to be out of our hands, but at this moment in time, we are planning for some virtual camp options. We're very fortunate that we have staff and we will be able to retain our staff through the summer, and like I said, holding out hopes that we'll be able to do some sort of summer camp, hopefully in person, fingers crossed, later in the summer perhaps. In the meantime, we're just, trying to keep our girls engaged. We have some resources online, like most organizations now. Girl Scouts at Home is a platform that Girl Scouts of the USA put together for girls to participate at home with their families and also with their troop. I know that we've had troops that are doing Zoom meetings like the rest of the world, trying to keep in touch. And we're very fortunate that our cookie sale was nearly finished. We did have some booth sales that had to be stopped when COVID-19 hit, and we were able to quickly turn around and do some online sales. And I believe actually people are still getting deliveries of cookies. So if you're interested in cookies, be sure to check out our website, girlscouts.org. Also, a little known fact that you do not need to be a parent to be a volunteer. And I think Abby Weber, our membership person for Sheboygan County, is on the line today. If anyone is interested in volunteering or getting involved with Girl Scouts, Abby is a great person to reach out to, or anybody really at Manitou Council. We're all happy to assist with anything people have interest in getting involved with Girl Scouts. That is all that I have. Does anybody have any questions? Very quiet group.
Well, thank you, Amy, for presenting. And Abby is part of our curriculum committee too. So if you guys have questions and she's around, she's helped with some of the sessions as well. Feel free to reach out to her and things like that as well.
Great.
Any other questions at this time? Okay. Our last presenter for the day is Chris Weber from the Boy Scouts. So I will let him dig in and talk about what they do for the children in our community as well and what they offer. Go ahead, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you. How's everybody doing? Good. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna throw up a PowerPoint here quick. All right. And we'll get rolling. All right. So again, guys, my name is Chris Weber. I'm a district director for the Bay Lakes Council. And I cover Sheboygan, Manitowoc, and Calumet counties, working with youth, adults, just getting them involved with scouting, promoting the programs, and really just making sure scouting's alive and well in our community. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Sheboygan. First, let's start off with our mission and our vision. You guys can see that up on the screen. Our mission is to instill in young people lifetime values and develop in them leadership skills and ethical character, which is expressed in our Scout Oath and our Scout Law. Really, that's the background of our organization right there, the Scout Oath. On my honor, I will do my duty to God and my country and obey the Scout Law to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. That's what we ask our scouts to do each day. Their Scout Law, they promise to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And that's what we would be really nice if we could expect everybody in the society to follow those guidelines. So that's kind of what we expect as scouts. The vision for the Bay Lakes Council, we want to be the leading youth organization in our service area that fosters character development and values-based leadership. Here's a little bit of statistics on who's actually involved in our county. We have 36 different scouting units in our county. We have 750 total scouts that belong to those 36 different groups. We have 450 adult leaders, so people that lead these scouts on their adventures and along their journey as scouts. And then we work with 23 different chartered organizations to sponsor these groups. Chartered organization, really, that's the background of how we operate. They actually sponsor and own each scouting group that they foster. They allow the scouts to meet at their facilities. They help recruit adult leadership, and they may even help with funding in some cases. So they're a really critical part. A lot of our charter organizations are religious institutions, different nonprofit groups, a lot of service clubs, some PTOs. So we have a wide range there. Now I want to talk a little bit about our different programs. When you guys hear our organization name, our organization name is the Boy Scouts of America, but we have different programs that fall within our organization. And the first one is Cub Scouts, and that's for boys and girls from kindergarten through 5th grade. And it's really led by the families of the kids that are involved in those programs, focused on getting introduced to the outdoors, learning some fun introduction to scout skills, like the introduction to knot tying, taking hikes, introductions to camping, really just kind of getting you a taste of being outdoors, being comfortable, being willing to try new things, especially when you're working with those really young scouts that are in kindergarten and 1st grade. They're kind of timid, don't really want to leave mom and dad's side. So we introduce them and kind of build it up each year. As they get a little older, they get a little more freedom, a little more flexibility to kind of grow and go on their own way. So I'm going to show you guys just a little promo video of what Cub Scouting's like. All right.
Hello and welcome to Cub Scouting. We're glad you and your child have decided to join us for family fun and adventure. You probably we have some questions. So we will start off by answering the 5 most frequently asked by new families. Cub Scouts wear a shirt, hat, neckerchief, belt, pants, shorts or sport, and socks to meetings and special events, like the uniform seen here. During outdoor activities like hiking or camping, they wear a t-shirt. They also need a handbook to learn about and record all their Cub Scout activities. You can get your child's uniform and handbook for their Scout grade level at your local Scout shop or online at scoutshop.org. You and your child are now part of a small group based on grade and gender called a den. This group meets 2 to 3 times a month to do Cub Scout adventure activities. Parents in your den work together to coordinate activities and help during den meetings. 2 parents serve as volunteers, the den leader and assistant den leader, or co-den leaders. Together, they help plan activities and use the den meeting plans to deliver the Cub Scout program. The pack is made up of multiple dens. Cub Scouts and their families come together monthly at a pack meeting to engage in fun activities and to recognize the youth for their achievements. Some months, these meetings may be a special activity, a banquet, or an outdoor event like a family campout. Each Cub Scout grade level is known as a rank and has an animal or a symbol associated with it. Advancement refers to the completion of the required adventure activities in the handbook. Most adventure activities will be completed during den meetings, but some are worked on as a family. As the youth completes each activity, the handbook is signed by the den leader or the parent. Once all required activities are completed, the youth will earn an adventure belt loop. After earning a number of adventures and completing other requirements, they will be awarded their rank badge. This badge is sewn onto their uniform to show their accomplishment. A Kayla is the Cub Scout term for leader. At home, you are a Kayla. The den leader is a Kayla during den meetings, and the Cub Master serves as a Kayla during pack meetings. All who are a Kayla have a responsibility to ensure that they and the youth in their pack or den act in accordance with the Scout oath and law. That's it for now. We're excited to welcome you into the Cub Scouting family, where adventure beckons and fun times await.
All right. So that is a little bit about Cub Scouts. All right. All right, was that volume all right, guys, on that video? It's good. All right, great. Okay. So yeah, Cub Scouts all about fun, guys. As you can see, it's a very family-friendly program, and it's just exciting to get in and work with those young kids that are so enthusiastic. Get them outside, get them off of screens and all the tech, which I think everybody has a little bit of an overload right now. So we're just really looking forward to kind of getting back to a little bit more of our normalcy. But anyway, we'll kind of continue here. All right. All right. So our next program is Scouts BSA. It's for boys and girls, 11 to 17, and we have groups for boys and then groups for girls. And that's this is where things start being a little more advanced and a little more Scout led. So I'm going to show you guys a quick little video that's going to give you an overview there. But really, the highlight is the kids working as a group, planning their own programs and activities, and then working on their advancement, which you guys will kind of see that graphic there in the background. That's the big thing about being a Scout, is earning merit badges. There's a wide variety of different merit badges, different career fields, different hobbies, and different skills that they need to accomplish. And then as they move up in their ranks as a Scout, there's a certain number of merit badges they need to earn, certain leadership positions they need to fill in their own group. with the ultimate end goal, earning the rank of Eagle Scout. Everyone, knows that rank. That's what makes scouting famous. It's that highest achievement that a scout can earn. So we'll play our next video.
Chris, just so you know about the videos, with Zoom, it only registers with the software that you're using, so you'd actually have to switch sharing your screen to YouTube for us to watch the video. We're able to hear it okay, but we just can't see it.
Oh, well, that's helpful. Let me do that real quick. All right, so you guys have the YouTube screen loading right now?
Yep.
Great. All right. Bear with me, my computer is painfully slow this morning.
Hello and welcome to Scouts BSA. We're glad you've decided to join us for fun and adventure. Your entire family is welcome.
You may have some specific questions that your Scoutmaster will be happy to answer, but let's talk about a few things now that many new families wonder about.
Who's in charge of the Scout troop? Adult leaders?
Although a Scout troop is guided and mentored by adult leaders, Scouts actually lead the troop themselves. Scouts are trained to plan their meetings and activities in a safe environment.
Older Scouts take great pride in helping their younger, new friends learn about the outdoors, being a good citizen, and personal fitness. Scouts build character and grow their self-confidence by learning from one another.
All this while understanding that everyone is different. Scouts learn to appreciate those differences. Our program encourages each Scout to pursue skills at their own pace.
What types of skills do Scouts learn?
Younger Scouts start out with the basics. A Scout's early experiences include simple knot tying and helping prepare meals when camping. More advanced skills become mastered as a Scout grows.
How do Scouts advance through the ranks to become Eagle Scouts?
Scouts advance to one of 7 ranks when a set group of requirements are completed, with becoming an Eagle Scout the ultimate achievement.
So, how do you become an Eagle Scout, and how hard is it? Like anything else, the Scouts take one small step at a time. As Scouts advance through each rank, they build on previous learning.
Scouts also advance in rank by completing merit badge requirements. Merit badges encourage Scouts to explore areas that interest them and teach them valuable skills. The learning from the work on merit badges can lead to careers and lifelong hobbies.
Eagle Scouts must earn 13 required badges, with at least 8 more of their choosing.
With more than 135 different merit badges, Scouting celebrates how each person is unique, and the Merit Badge program allows every Scout to discover, explore, and take their own path.
Of course, anyone can have a small misstep along the way, but with proper adult supervision and safety standards, Scouts have fun in a controlled environment. Well-trained adults always keep a watchful eye out for our Scouts and to assist in a Scout's personal growth.
Is the patrol method?
Scout troops are often broken down into smaller groups known as patrols. Here, Scouts learn responsibility at the most basic level because they elect their own leaders. Through their elected patrol leaders, Scouts have a voice in deciding what activities the troop will put on its calendar. Patrols help a youth-led troop in what we call the patrol method.
These time-tested methods produce the most fun a boy or girl could possibly have and result in well-rounded and confident adults.
We're glad you and your family have joined us along Scouting's trail.
All right. All right, so that was a little highlight on Scouts BSA, and that's it's really cool to see when a Scout first joins a troop, and then where they finish, seeing that growth, and just kind of the wonders that the patrol method can work when you give kids that freedom to elect their own leaders, work together, and plan activities that they want to do. Really, that's the whole intention of the patrol method. And when our troops nail that, that's where the program really shines. When the adults want to just get together and plan everything for the kids, that's kind of when we see some issues, and some of the kids lose interest. But really giving them the freedom, and then when the adults kind of just sit back and, you know, they can be the mentor and maybe, you know, suggest some things, but not taking control. That's kind of the idea there. All right. Let's see. So now we're obviously in a little different reality with COVID-19. You know, with our programs, it's all about, you know, meetings, activities, campouts, interactions with scouts and leaders and counselors and things like that. Summer camp. So right now as a council, we're trying to fill the void and do some virtual scouting at home options. Like I heard Amy mention they're doing some things as well, the Girl Scouts. A big thing our scouts are doing right now, it's actually today's the last day, we're doing a virtual scouting for food drive. We typically do this in person. We have scouts go out and collect food in their communities. One weekend they'll all go out and they'll put out a little informational notice on everyone's door saying, hey, please put out some non-perishable food items. The next weekend we'll come back, pick it up, and then take it to our local pantries and food banks. So we couldn't do that this year. So we wanted to still support best we could. We know a lot of our pantries and food banks right now are cash strapped. So we've asked our packs and troops to fundraise for those local banks and pantries by putting out flyers, social media posts, encouraging their family members and different community members to donate directly to those pantries and food banks, so that people can still be getting those critical food items. So we've had some pretty big success with that so far. Numbers are still flying in, but I know some of the early estimates just in Brown County, they had already raised $50,000 at the end of last week for some of the pantries up there. So scouts can make an impact, and we're excited to see how much of an impact we've made around here. So hopefully that's something I can report with you guys at a later time. Another big thing we're doing, actually this weekend, we're doing a Scouting at Home camporee. And we're actually opening that up to the general public. We're going to be hosting it on Facebook Live Friday night at 6:30. You can also access it through our website, baylakespsa.org. Basically, we're asking people to set up a backyard campsite and camp out in your backyard. We're going to have, like I said, that Facebook Live session at 6:30 with a campfire program that's going to include songs, skits, and different fun things that we typically do at our overnight scouting events. So really just trying to have a camporee feel, get some folks inside and keep them engaged there. On Saturday, our national organization is going to be hosting some virtual kind of like marriage sessions throughout the day that people can participate in. There's going to be a movie making merit badge. We're actually going to have the director that did the Hunger Games. He's going to be leading that session, so it's kind of a cool little niche that Scouts can jump on. And then on Sunday, we're going to do a Scouts own service virtually, so kind of a non-denominational religious service, and then basically a how to make a mountain man breakfast on the campfire. So some cool things to check out over the weekend. It looks like we're gonna have some nicer weather coming up. So, and then another thing we're looking to ramp up, just offering more of our merit badges online, so Scouts can access them Zoom and other streaming services. So we have a couple sessions for digital technology and citizenship in the world that are going to be offered throughout the month of May. So I feel like I've been talking a lot. Does anybody have any questions? If you want to ask questions, some of the biggest things that we constantly need help from the community is just folks that are willing to volunteer, whether it's with our local units or packs and troops, and people that want to work with kids that way. talked about merit badges a little bit with the Scouts BSA program. Anyone can be a badge counselor in a specific field. As you guys saw, there's over 135 different merit badges. We're always looking for more counselors. So if you have a specific hobby or skill and would like to help out, you can reach out to me. I can get you some more information. Basically, that commitment is our directory. A scout that wants to earn a specific badge would give you a call, and you would work with to accomplish that and kind of be their mentor along the way. So it's kind of a neat opportunity to kind of be involved at a limited level. Or for you want to jump in and be a leader with a unit that's a little more involved. So a lot of opportunities that way to help out and involved. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Does anyone have any questions about the Boy Scouts at this point? There's Chris's information on the screen. If you guys have questions or anything for him, feel free to reach out to him directly as well. All right, thanks for giving us a little insight about the Boy Scouts, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, so that was our last presenter for the day. This has kind of concluded our little mini sessions that we're offering to help catch you guys up on the 2 days we missed full days with. So, Dan, do you have any additional information yet about graduation or anything, or are we kind of waiting to hear as the safer at home stuff goes through, or?
We are waiting right now to continue. We might be breaking up graduation day into different days for each thing as we are able. So we're still working on that. But I would like for everyone to give me an update on their job shadows, if you could. Just basically if you have changed your job shadow or if it's completed or if you're having trouble getting it completed. So just an update, that would be great.
All right, and then Nan will be in touch with you guys moving forward on what's gonna go on and what the next couple times might look like. All right, thank you guys.
Have a good day,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye. See you soon.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks, guys.